Everybody, this is Osprey from MyChartCoach.com, and in this video we're going to take a look at some of the top percentage gainers today, some of the hottest stocks today. There were quite a few stocks that were running, even though the markets were under pressure. Once again, you know, there's been plenty of small caps, so every day there's lots of small caps running. You just have to be selective and pick the right plays, and so that's what we try to do every day is to bring you know, interesting plays to the table, and we do post plays basically around the clock in our premium chat, so please come check that out. I will post the link at the bottom of the YouTube video. So first up is MARA, M-A-R-A. As you can see here, it closed up 58% today. That was a huge move. This is a big bounce play. Notice that RSI is at 50 right here, right at 50, just a little above. You want to see it break above 50. Above 50 would signal the chart is heating up and building strength. You've got RSI or FASTO there at 70s. The big move today was the close above the middle Bollinger Band. That's what we were looking for. A close above the middle Bollinger Band and above the 200-day simple moving average. That's the red line at 219 and the dotted purple line at 229. If MARA stays above 229, this new uptrend should continue. The last time it got above the middle Bollinger Band intraday was back here in January, and it failed to close above. You have to go back in December to find the last close above the middle Bollinger Band, back there in December 20th. So this is a very bullish change in trend, and also it's on a very big volume spike. Now, if it drops below the middle Bollinger Band, that's going to be a major red flag. It has to stay above to be for a long trade now. Okay, so notice that PSAR flipped below the candles. The dots are now below the candles. The next target is up here at what we're calling the $3 resistance zone. You have the 50, the 50, 100, and 300 day simple moving averages all converging in the same zone. The 100-day simple moving average is the top moving average on this chart. Once MARA breaks above that level and turns it into support, that's going to be a signal the chart is very, very strong and the uptrend can continue. If it runs up to this $3 resistance zone and it fails to break, notice that it is also the upper Bollinger Band. It started down here at the lower Bollinger Band, you know, actually below, and then the upper Bollinger Band is the very top, so it's going from the bottom, if it does run up to 3, to the top, and so it's going to have to bust through all, you know, these 4 resistance levels and then turn those into support in order to head higher. So keep an eye on that level tomorrow. Notice that the 15-minute chart here for MARA was super strong. Look at the volume the 2 preceding days, you know, hardly any volume at all, and then look at the volume today. You know, this is monster volume for the stock. They came out, they had news about their Bitcoin mining equipment. I believe it was Quebec. I'm not the news guy, but the TA is showing that you know, this was running on, you know, some bullish developments for the company. The big break above the 50-day simple moving average put it, or not, the 50 simple moving average on the 15-minute chart, put it in play. That was resistance. When it closed above that level on a volume spike, that was your big clue. Okay, yeah, it's running today. And then notice it got above the 100, the 200, and then it finally got above that 300, and it held the blue line. That was your clear signal. Okay, this is for real. It's heading higher. And notice it rode EMA4 support the entire day. It closed above the pink line at 239. That did not break the entire day. This is maximum bullishness, including this candle right here that looked like it was possibly going to be a shakeout at 3 o'clock. It started forming a red candle. We weren't sure. Is this, you know, it had the long upper wick. We thought maybe it could be a climax spike. It did have the huge volume spike, but they kept buying and drove it higher into the close. So yeah, that was a really, really strong close for MARA. It's set up for continuation tomorrow at the open, and so just see if it can break through that $3 level. Okay, let's look at NETE. This is another one that was big follow through today. There were several stocks that followed through today from Friday, and NETE is one of them. You know, this was in play last week when it you know, basically ran you know, pretty much every day last week, but it took a pause on Friday. But the candles were still above EMA4, putting it still in play. This was what we call just a pause candle, a breather candle. It stayed above EMA4. The chart was still super bullish, even though a red volume bar and a red candle formed. That open red, that hollow red candle, that means that even though it was down on the day, it closed above the open, and that's a sign that the bulls were actually buying into the close. And so there was big follow through today, and then now the big resistance level to break is over here from January, the first trading day in January. We're calling it the 14 resistance level. Okay, it's saying 14. If it can get above 14, that's going to signal that it wants to head higher. And then you have this gap over here. There's a gap between a low of day on this candle and high of day on this candle. Okay. okay? And so the bottom of the gap is always a tough level to break. So keep an eye on that 1650 zone. If it can get above 1650, then it could run up to 18 and fill the gap, okay? A gap fill is always a big accomplishment. Many times that would signal a top if it was if that happened during a run. But what it would have to do is close above the top of the gap, and then you also have the high close from over here on the 20th of December. That's the big level at 1950. So right now it has to get through 14. If it fails to get above 14, then the candles could work back into the bands, and the big level to hold is going to be EMA 4 at 1063. As long as that level is holding, the strong uptrend should continue. A close below would be your signal it's cooling down. Look at the channel on the 15-minute chart for NETE, and as you can see here, this is the top, and then it bounces off the bottom, back off the top. It's going off the bottom. Right now, it's near the top of the channel, and so it has to bust through this 14 level to head higher. Is it going to bust through the top of the channel here, and then make a new breakout higher, or is it going to pull back and test that $11 support zone? And so the big level to hold is going to be the middle Bollinger Band at 1276. If you see it trading below 1275 tomorrow, that's going to be your signal. Okay, yeah, this is cooling down, and that's when it could drop down to that 50 simple moving average down there in the $11 zone. Okay, so it has to break above 14 to head higher. Okay, RKDA. Okay, yeah, this had really nice follow through today, so congrats everybody. This was another play from last week. The small caps have been following through, and it doesn't happen every day. It doesn't happen very often during the year that you get the small caps running like this. So you have to take advantage of sector-wide runs when this happens. And so it's just pretty much been a small cap theme, and stocks that have had zero volume. I mean, look at the previous volume for RKDA. Nobody wanted to touch this thing. It had been going sideways, and then just one day they're like, boom, this is what we call the front load on the 27th. They pulled it back here. That pullback, that was people loading for the breakout, and then boom, they took it higher. They started walking it up. Look how they could walk it up on super light volume, and because there was just no interest in the stock. And then boom, on Friday they really took it running with some volume. It broke above that 200 simple moving average, and then above the 300. And this was a reverse split play, so that does throw off the volume as well. Because I believe that they did a reverse split, and that's why the share price is at such a high level right now. And so then you have limited, you have a low float, a small float, and that helps to push the share price higher. What you have to watch out for, though, when there's a reverse split, why do companies have a reverse split? It's because they have bad financing, and they need to sell more shares. It's all about the financing with the penny stocks, and most of them have horrible financing. That's why they're bad penny. That's why they're penny stocks, is because they don't make money. And so this long upper wick here was your clue that they were dumping into the rally. It hit 19 and it pulled back, and so that looks like profit taking there. It has to hold this 300-day simple moving average at 1064. This looks like a climax spike after a multi-day run. It's been, it ran, for multiple days. It only had 2 small pause days, and so yeah, this could be the climax after a multi-day run. If it drops below that 300-day simple moving average, then it could test that EMA 4 at 972. A drop below EMA 4, and then you could see the 200-day simple moving average tested at 751. If you look here at the weekly chart, and this is, it's always good to look further out and use a weekly chart to find when a stock's breaking out, to find that on a daily chart when a stock's breaking out. It's good to look at the weekly chart to find the next resistance levels. And as you could see here, that this 100 week moving average is a big resistance level for RKDA. The top of that wick came close to hitting that and pulled back. That long wick right there, that's all the dilution. They sell at the high, and so yeah, you can see this is a big resistance level here, and so it's going to have to bust through this previous. There was a channel between March and June of 2017, and it's going to be tough to break above that 14. If it can, that 100-week moving average at 20 will be the next target. As long as EMA 4 at 943 and the 50-week moving average at 881 are holding, then this new uptrend, the strong uptrend should continue. It started back here in February when it closed just above that middle Bollinger Band. So it does have a new uptrend going, and it is pushing really hard. It just looks like they dumped some shares. And as you can see, this is why, this is another reason why we say that, is because this is the RKDA 15-minute chart, and you can see what we call the climax spike. Look at the big volume volume spikes at the beginning of the day. Okay, so you have the multi-day run, and then you know that they just had a reverse split. That means that they're looking to dump shares, and then you know you've got no volume down here, and then all of a sudden you see bam, big push of volume up at the top, and that's your signal. Okay, yeah, this could be a climax spike, and then what you're looking for is that red candle. After you see the big volume spike, and then you see that red candle, you know, after a multi-day run, and you're looking to lock in gain. This is where you could try to lock in that high of day gains. And if you don't lock it in on that first red candle, it's that break below EMA4 is your clue. It's breaking down. So this was your clue. And then if you waited on that, it was this 1130 that was the clear signal. Okay, yeah, this is cooling down. It's not going back up to test. It's cooling down. It could test that middle Bollinger Band, and then it broke through middle Bollinger Band support, and then they always drop down to that 50 simple moving, or the 50 simple moving average when that middle Bollinger Band breaks. That's the next big target. You can see it's playing out textbook perfect. If it fails to hold that 12 level, it needs to bounce off of 12. Then you could see a drop down to the 100 simple moving average at 9. You know, they faded the rally. All the volume was in the beginning of the day, and now look how it's dropping on air, because it's, you know, and that's the problem with the thinly traded stock. Once the volume dries up, it can be tough to sell. Okay, let's look at PTI. So yeah, so this, you know, didn't close up very much today. This was alerted on Friday, and so you know, today it had news. It had after hours news, and as you can see on Friday, it had closed above that 50-day simple moving average. We put out alerts saying that it was hitting the 50-day simple moving average and breaking intraday, and so you know, it needed to close above, and if it did, that would be a signal that it could head higher. And then our theory is that once it gets above that 50-day simple moving average, as long as it holds, then the signal's to keep riding. And then today it formed that black candle, still holding the 50-day simple moving average and EMA4. It's a signal to stay long as that $4 support level is holding. And so today, you know, the after hours news came out, and so they had some big news, and so now the after hours price is all the way up here at 604. And so you can see it's above the next major resistance level, which is the 300-day simple moving average at 561. There's going to be a big gap open likely, and so that's going to create a huge space in the chart. It is really good news. And so as you can see, the gap up open is putting it at the exact same price that it had resistance before. So see how there was a channel here, and that was after a double top. It hit the top here on the 12th of December, and then it pulled back, and then it came back up, and this is what we call a double top, and it failed to break resistance, and it pulled back, and that signaled the start of the downtrend. Once it got below the middle Bollinger Band, the downtrend got cooking. And so, you know, it got back above the middle Bollinger Band, and now it's back above the 50-day simple moving average, and so now it's above that 300-day simple moving average, but it's right back at resistance. It closed right at the resistance zone. So basically, to make a long story short, if it can close above 620, that's the top of this channel, it's the top of this double top zone, that's going to be a signal, okay, yeah, it wants to head higher. If you see it stalling out at 620, and especially if you see it drop below the 300-day simple moving average at 561, that would be a red flag, and the downside risk is it could fill the gap below. So going forward, you know, it's bullish above 620, and it's bearish below, or not bearish, but just saying that there's potential for the gap to fill if it drops below 561. You just never know what's going to happen. You know, you always just have to follow the charts. You know, we can have our ideas of what's going to happen, but you know, you just have to stick to the charts. Follow the chart, not the heart. As you can see here, last Friday at 6:39 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, that was only 9 minutes after the market opened. I posted this chart showing that it was hitting the 50-day simple moving average, and so that was our clue that it was heating up. That's one of the big setups that we look for. That's one of my personal favorite setups, is a close above the 50-day simple moving average on the daily chart after it's been resistance for an extended period of time. Many times bullish moves follow. It's a signal that it's heating up, and a lot of times good news, something like this, is what happens. This is why it was heating up, because there was good news coming. Okay, so now if you look at the PTI weekly chart, you can see here last week it closed above the 50-week moving average. It closed back above the green line and back above the middle Bollinger Band. That was a signal that it was heating up. The last time it was above that level was back here when it was at that 604 level. Notice that 604 is the exact same level that it closed out after hours. You can't make this stuff up. It's because the computer algorithms are in control. control. The reason why the charting and the technical analysis works is because 80% of trading nowadays is done through program trading, and that's based off of the moving averages and based off of key algorithmic programs that they base off of the moving averages that we're discussing in these videos. Okay, and all these key support and resistance levels, and so that's why this the technical analysis works, and we're all using the same data. And so basically, it has to get above 604. If it gets above 604 and closes above for the week, that would be really bullish. And then you're looking at the 100-week moving average at 820 is the big level to break. Notice how this was a huge level on the chart, this 604, so a weekly close above would be extremely bullish. Okay, let's look at ENRJ. This is another one that we alerted last week, put out alerts that it was breaking above that middle Bollinger Band and testing that 50-day simple moving average, and then we showed how, like in January here, it had tested that 50-day simple moving average and failed to break above. And so we're always looking, to make sure, and it was alerted the day before this on this candle when it was breaking intraday, but it had failed to close above, and then it had nice follow through on Friday. So it was alerted on Thursday of last week. And so today there was a huge gap up open, and then it ran up to that 100-day simple moving average and pulled back. It did close below the 50-day simple moving average, on Friday, and it was able to head higher. Many times when they trade above the moving average and pull back, that signals that it's temporary resistance. So going forward, it has to trade above 23. If it trades above 23, then the next target is the 200-day simple moving average at 263. If you see it struggling tomorrow to stay above 23, the downside risk is there is a gap between the high of day on Friday and low of day on today's candle, and so it could drop down to 19 and fill that gap. A drop down to test that 50-day simple moving average would fill the gap. It hasn't been tested since it's been since this move above, and then once again you have to look out for the climax spike. Anytime you have a multi-day run on a penny stock, you always have to be on the lookout for the climax spike. Why do we look for the climax spike? Because they dump into the top of the run, and this could just be a temporary dump, and it could head higher. But it did have the upper wick on the candle and the giant volume spike. So those are classic signs that they were selling some shares. And then as you can see here at the open, you notice that it was the big volume, and so that I think maybe they were able to unload a little bit. It came back down and it formed a double top. And so if it fails to get above this double top level, and notice how it closed below the middle Bollinger Band at 23, there's that 23 level again. If 23 is resistance, the downside risk is it drops down to the 50 simple moving average at 21. Our strategy is, the theory is that any stock is a risk to hold if it closes below the middle Bollinger Band on the 15-minute chart. That's just a simple way to protect yourself. You might miss out on some potential upside, but you're mitigating risk and protecting yourself from potential downside risk. Okay, look at CPAH here. CPAH. This is another one that's heating up. This is another break above that 50-day simple moving average that we talk about. Notice that it closed above the green line today, and so that was resistance ever since there was a close below on this red candle here. And so notice how it tried to get above here in February and it failed. And so today that close above is a change in trend. For many weeks it had been resistance, and so last week it had closed above that middle Bollinger Band, the dotted purple line, for the first time since back here in January. And so that was a signal, okay, it's trying to get an uptrend going. It tried to do that in January and failed and pulled back. Now this big move is signaling, okay, yeah, this could be for real. Well, now it has to break this January resistance level. Notice how it closed right at the closing price on January 29th, or just right below it. If it can break above that, then you're looking at $5, and this 520 is the next two big levels to break. The top up here, if it can get through this 520 resistance zone, you've got the candle here at 6, that'll be resistance. But yeah, it could run all the way back up to 680 if it can, stay above that 470 resistance zone. So this is a really good move. It happened on a volume spike. If today's candle did close above that upper Bollinger Band, many times the candles will work back into the bands. So if it pulls back to test test the 50 50-day simple moving average. As long as it holds at 411, it will signal it's still in play. So many times when a stock busts ahead like this, you can wait for that pullback if it happens and try to reload off the, like similar to this back here. You can see how it busted above the upper Bollinger Band on this candle, and the red candle followed as it pulled back into the bands, and then people were able to load down here before the run back. And so, you know, I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but sometimes it does, so keep an eye out for it. Okay, let's look at CRIS. This closed up 18%. This is another one that we alerted last week multiple times. Yeah, you know, and for all of these stocks, you know, go back and check out if you're trading them. You know, where's RSI? Where's Fasto? You know, are they at the overbought level? For many of these penny stocks, they cannot maintain above 80 on Fasto and above 70 on RSI. Stocks like Amazon and Microsoft and you know the large caps can maintain in what we call the power zone. That's above 70 on RSI and above 80 on Fasto. But many of these small caps can't. And so yeah, so they struggle once they get above that level. And many times that's a clue to be looking for signs of a top. And so right here for CRIS, you can see it's hitting the dollar level. That this is a resistance level from back here in November. And so if it can bust above $1, close above $1, will signal that the run's continuing. And then we'll be looking for a run up to 125 zone. And then you have the 200-day simple moving average at 135. That is the eventual target as long as that 100-day simple moving average at 87 holds. It's on a multi-day run right now. So, you know, it could pull back and test that 100-day simple moving average if $1 fails to break. $1 is always a big level to break for penny stocks that are trading below. And so, yeah, we'll just see if it can continue with this uptrend. As long as EMA 4 at 82 is holding, the uptrend is very strong. Okay, let's look at BUR. Closed up 15% today. It's at 59 now on our RSI. So this stock is heating up. So we'll see here if it can get through this jumbled mess here. You know, you can see there was a lot of trading in this zone. But if you look at this descending resistance line, it did close above today. It looks like it had a symmetrical triangle pattern. You have a ascending support, descending resistance. It could be a stretch here, but it looks like it's trying to break above. It did close above the middle Bollinger Band and the 1500-day simple moving averages. If it can get through this 55 resistance zone, 58 is going to be a big level. That's the high close in January. And then if it can get above that, it could run back up to that 200-day simple moving average at 65. That's the upside potential if it can stay above 50. It will be a red flag if it drops back below 50. Okay, look at NXDT. Okay, so NXDT is heating up. So keep an eye on the Bitcoin and blockchain related stocks, what we call the crypto stocks. They have been heating up, and so they've been kind of going down the line. You know how we had MARA, M-A-R-A, and NETE, and then NXTD. These are all supposed to be somehow related to blockchain or somehow crypto related, and so NXTD is heating up right now as well, and so just keep an eye on it. It did close back above that 50-day simple moving average. It had closed above that level on the 5th, but it dropped back below, and so but you can see it closed above it on the 26th, and it closed above it on this candle right here. And so if it can stay above that 50-day simple moving average, that's going to be your clue. Okay, yeah, it's actually happening. It's trying to push higher. And so 255 is what we would call your mental stop loss level. You don't want to hold if it drops below that level. For these penny stocks, you know, many times if you set a stop loss level, say you set it at 255, the market makers might dip down and take out your stop and still run the stock. So you have to be careful using stops with penny stocks. Many people like to use what we call a mental stop loss, but you have to be disciplined, and if it breaks that level, you have to be able to sell. Okay, so look how it's been trading in the sideways channel for the last couple of weeks. This closing price on the 5th is the big level to break. It closed right at that level. If it can close above, that's the highest close since way back here in January. So that would be a clear signal that this new uptrend that has started is continuing. And then what we'd be looking for is a run up to the top of the channel, which is up here at $4. Now if it can bust above $4, there is a gap between this 450 and 475 level. That's between these two candles over here back in December, between December 26th and December 27th. So a run up to 450 would take it to the bottom of the gap, and a run to 475 would fill the gap. Okay, now another one to look at that's supposed to be in the crypto stock sector, and don't get upset at me me if I'm wrong on any of this information on whether or not they are or not. There's been a lot of these companies are reporting that they are in the sector, and so I'm not verifying whether or not they are. We just have certain stocks that are listed, you know, in our chat as crypto-related stocks, and CNET is one of them. I suggest, you know, you definitely do your due diligence and check out to make sure. But nonetheless, it's heating up, and so it's hitting the middle Bollinger Band right now. Notice it hasn't closed above the middle Bollinger Band since back here on the 24th, okay, of January, and so when it closed below the middle Bollinger Band, you know, that really signaled this downtrend, you know, was strong. You know, basically it got faded ever since this big candle. It's been just a piece of junk, you know, unless you traded it on this day, you know, it's just been nothing but downside risk. You know, it had a little mini rally here, but it's trying to heat up, and every dog has its day, and like you see, you know, this thing can make big runs at times, and so basically if it can get above 265, that's the huge level. And so a close above the middle Bollinger Band at 265 is going to be your signal. Okay, yeah, this is happening. It's ready to head higher. It looks like it wants to. Now what we'd be looking for if it gets above 265 is that 50-day simple moving average at 332. That would be the target. If it can bust through $3, it should be able to run to 332. Now, if it can close above that 332 level and turn that 50-day simple moving average into support, it is the top moving average on this chart. You notice it's trading above the 300, the 200, the 100-day simple moving averages. It has super tight Bollinger Bands. It's set up to make a move. This is where we say, you know, a move is imminent. It's either going to bust through support and drop lower and test that 200-day simple moving average if the 100-day simple moving average at 223 support level breaks, or if it busts through that middle Bollinger Band, it should run up to that 50-day simple moving average. If it gets above the 50-day simple moving average, well, this thing could get moving. If the Bitcoin, you know, if they run stocks that are related to this penny stock here. Okay, and now let's look at the CNET 15-minute chart. And so this is why it looked like it was really heating up today. As you can see, it got above all the moving averages. It got above the 50 simple moving average, above and that signaled that it was in play. That held. It got above the 100 simple moving average. It was testing that 200-day simple moving average and pulled back. Notice that the middle Bollinger Band and the 100-day simple moving average were holding, and then boom, look at the close. They really took this thing higher at the end, at the close, and they drove it above that 300 simple moving average, which is the top moving average. So going forward, if it stays above 255, that's a signal that CNET is in play. Okay, so it's very, very bullish right now on the 15-minute chart, and so yeah, you know, this was alerted by you know, another member in our chat, Mondo. Thanks, buddy. Great job once again. Yeah, he alerted us actually way early that this was setting up, and so that was another great call. And so yeah, and so basically, if it can get above this middle Bollinger Band level, that's going to be a signal to head higher. The big volume spike at the end is very promising, so keep an eye on CNET tomorrow. And then another one to look at is ALQA. Okay, yeah, this one is heating up as well. Notice the volume is very light. You know, less than 300,000 shares traded today, but it has RSI at 58, so it has room to run until that 70 overbought level. If you look down here, it closed today above the 50-day simple moving average, and you know we like that. You know, sometimes this happens when you get a close above the 50-day simple moving average. A red candle forms and it drops below. That's what we are not looking for here. There was some heavy consolidation below this level. Check out the sideways channel, okay? And today it finally busted out of the top of the sideways channel. This was a 1, 2, 3, 4. This is like a 5-week channel. Breaking out above that and the 50-day simple moving average, and look at this red descending resistance line, the top of the channel. It busted through the top of that as well. Those are all big clues that this is heating up. And then what you really want to see on a day that a stock is breaking resistance, especially a penny stock, is a volume spike. Notice how this was the largest volume day since back here in January. So this is exactly what the bulls want to see. It has everything going for it. Now it just has to follow through. If it drops below 190 and goes back below that 50-day simple moving average, well, it's no longer in play. That's your stop loss level. If it can bust through that $2 level, we're looking at the 220 level as the next level to break, and a close above 220, that sets up 250. That's the high close over here, and then that 200-day simple moving average at 283. So yeah, this is, you know, it's breaking out of this big channel. This is a good move. I'd keep an eye on ALQA tomorrow. All right, so here's some penny stocks for tomorrow. Come check out our chat. I'll post the link below the YouTube video. It's a great place to learn. You know, we post you know, charts with with technical analysis for the alerts, and so it's not just telling you, what stocks to buy and sell and all that. It's not like it's more about teaching you a skill so that you can, learn how to use charts and technical analysis to trade on your own. Okay, thank you very much.